The thing to understand about American politics, first of all, is that media doesn't know what they're talking about, right? When media tries to simplify American politics into a Trump regime or the Trump dictatorship or whatever else, it's a gross oversimplification of a much more dangerous problem, right? Donald Trump is the current president, which, yes, means that this guy in a toupee who's overweight, who, is just disregards social norms. Yes, he as a character is a problem on its own, but he as an individual is not the problem. The problem is that a country, the wealthiest, most powerful country in the world, voted for him. That's the fucking problem, guys. That's the problem. How do you get a majority, both in terms of popular vote and in terms of our very complicated, very broken electoral college system? How do you get two separate majorities to all vote in a guy who is a convicted felon, who was previously ousted from the presidency, who is questionably not even the wealthy case study he claims to be, right? How is it that so many wealthy, educated, powerful, voting adults would vote that guy in? That's the real challenge here. Take Donald Trump out, put some other fucking celebrity in. It could have been a porn star. It could have been a Peter Thiel, another multi-billionaire. It could have been a movie actor like Ronald Reagan. The problem isn't the person. The problem is the system that supported the rise of the person. And that system is still there. It hasn't gone away. Donald Trump will eventually run out of time in office. That's not the issue. In my opinion, what we're seeing in the United States is the rise of celebrity politicians. We saw statesmen at first, many, many decades ago. And then that turned into professional politicians, people who were they made their career being politicians. They were able to lie for a whole profession, right? They were able to secure funding, and they were able to make people believe they were being represented in Washington when they weren't. And then we made this transition with Barack Obama to the celebrity politician, right? Like, Barack Obama didn't win the 2008 election because he was the best candidate. He won because he ran on a platform that was celebrity. He ran on a platform that had his picture like in Andy Warhol paint, and he had the word hope associated with him, and he had racial diversity, and he was handsome, and he was eloquent, and he had all this stuff going for him that had nothing to do with statesmanship, right? And then when he took office, he started exercising certain presidential rights that previous presidents would never exercise. He created more executive orders than anybody had created, ran more covert action than anybody had ever run in the past, and he started to create this systematic use of the seat of the president in ways that no other president had ever seen it before. And then when that seat turned over and turned over again, it just kept turning over through celebrity status. Donald Trump, celebrity. Joe Biden was riding on Obama's celebrity, and then back to Donald Trump again. So who's going to win the next election? Is it going to be a statesman? Is it going to be a trained politician? Probably not. It's going to be somebody who's riding on the coattails of celebrity. Well, if you've got a bunch of fucking rich, happy, stupid Americans voting on a popularity contest every 4 years, that doesn't bode well for the longevity of a maturing, progressive country, right? Hillary Clinton was the same thing. She was a celebrity, right? So we have this conflict of interest now in the US where we have to decide as Americans, are we going to take back the idea that we are a representative republic where the person in office is supposed to represent our desires and our needs? Or are we going to continue to vote for a celebrity in office because we want to have a rah-rah, high-five, fist-bumping moment at the end of Election Day in November, and then from that point on, we don't really know what the fuck they're going to do?
I mean, I often went on record, if I was American on this term, I'd have voted Trump. But since then, I feel it's just got really chaotic, the whole dynamics. I mean, obviously there was this whole, we kind of knew Elon and Trump, two big egos. I'm amazed it lasted as long as it did, that friendship. You kind of knew the foreshadow that was going to go south. But then this whole thing recently with Israel, Iran, and obviously Trump's, recently got involved as well, or the Trump administration have. It just seems to be, it's a daily thing now, isn't it? And I know politics should always be every day. There should be updates, but not to this level. I mean, you're hearing these. Is it a buzzword? I don't know. I'm going to get your take on it in a moment. But hearing the shouts of World War III implications. Where's your stance on the whole Israel, Iran, the US's involvement, and the potential World War III, or if we're already at that stage?
I think we've been in World War III, really going back to Libya and Syria. And I just think that we've been blind to the fact that wars evolve, right? I don't know. For some reason, people believe World War III is going to look like some version of World War II. I don't know why we think that. World War II didn't look anything like World War I, and Vietnam didn't look like World War II. So why are we thinking that war is going to somehow like reset back to what it was before? We're going to be in trenches and we're going to be lobbing nuclear weapons at each other. That's not a realistic thought. War evolves, and what we've seen is that war has evolved into this idea of proxy conflict, meaning rich countries fund conflicts in small countries, and then that's how they execute their policy against each other, right? Iran funnels its money into Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis to execute its policies against Israel. The United States puts its money and its time and its effort, along with NATO, into Ukraine. Why? Because we love Ukraine? No. Because we believe Ukraine is a functioning democracy? Absolutely not. We fund Ukraine because it's keeping Russia at bay. So that's called a proxy war. That's what happened in Syria. That's what happened in Libya. That's what's happened in Yemen. That's what's happened in Afghanistan. That's what's happened in Iraq. So there's all this constant conflict that's happening as countries fund conflict around the world. So I would argue that we are very much in World War III, and that's what World War III looks like. And the ramp up in conflict between Israel and Iran that we've seen for the last 2 years is just another manifestation of that. The United States can put money and weapons and boats on the shores of Israel, and Israel is the one that pays the cost in terms of lives against Iran, right? And they do it in a way that benefits them because now they're securing their own borders against Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis. And then Netanyahu is also gaining the political benefit of protecting his reputation because don't forget, when all the conflict is over, he goes back to an Israel that's currently pressing charges, right? He's on trial for corruption. He's on trial for embezzlement. So there's a number of things that he's going to have to face when the conflict is over. But for now, he's making some significant gains that secure the future of Israel that I'm sure he is hoping will play out in the courtroom whenever he does go to trial. So what we're seeing is this movement towards alliances. And as alliances start to take shape, we are also seeing information warfare, economic warfare, indirect military proxy warfare happening on two sides. And I would say those two sides largely divide into the West, meaning Western democracies, and the East. And I define the East as pragmatic authoritarianships, right? Some of them are maybe outright dictatorships. Some of them are questionable democracies, but essentially strong leaders on the right versus democratic leaders on the left. And since 2010, most sociologists, economists, and political scientists agree we've been seeing a backsliding of democracy. 2024 saw 80% of democracies in 2004 showed a decline in the democratic process in that year, meaning fewer people voted, more abuse of media was on the rise. The principles of democracy had receded for 80% of democracies in 2024. There were fewer democracies in 2020 than there were in 1956. So countries have changed away from being democratic, right? So from 20 to 24, we've seen a significant decline in democracy around the world. Simultaneously, we've seen a spike in authoritarianship, not dictatorship, not regime, not, kingdom building, but just strongman authoritarianship, which is authoritarianism is when the people essentially give their power to somebody else to make unilateral decisions. It's exactly what people complain about Donald Trump doing, except that in the United States, you still have the other two branches of government that are actively working to try to counterbalance Donald Trump in most cases. So the world is a messy place. I would argue that we are already in World War III, and I would also say that the future does not look bright for the United States or for democracies worldwide.
Yeah. How do you see this? You've unpacked that perfectly, by the way. But how do you see this playing out? Obviously, how you've just described there, but is there any sort of countries that stand out, or any collections? What you alluded to earlier, like we referenced Germany, France. How do you personally see it playing out?
I think, I mean, frankly and cynically, I think we're all fucked.
Right. Okay.
Right? I think what's going to happen is that we are going to go into probably 3 decades of pain, all of us, authoritarian countries and Western democracies. And in that 30 years of pain, the people will have to come face to face with what true pain feels like. We haven't felt pain in a long time. We have rhetoric, we have philosophy, we have opinion, but we don't actually have pain. The water that runs through our faucets is clean, our toilets flush, our TVs work, Wi-Fi is everywhere. We don't know what pain feels like. Not like they do in Africa, not like they do in Southeast Asia, not like they do in parts of Latin America.
CIA believes that all people are born with a spy secret superpower. For some people, that means they can win deals. For others, they can spot liars. Some can even seduce lovers. I built a free 3-minute test to help reveal to you exactly what your secret hidden superpower is. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below, take the test, and start using your spy superpower to stay ahead of 99% of people.
So the Western democratic world has become fat and complacent, literally and figuratively. So as we decline, as we watch our taxes go up, as we watch our influence recede, as we watch more conflict arise and more division between people, as we watch all of this happen, there's going to come a point where we have to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, I have a role to play in fixing this. Or we say, I don't want to have a role in fixing this. That's going to be a very individual, very human moment when fathers and mothers and college students and grandparents have to decide, do I get off my lazy ass, turn off Netflix, and actually go vote in the midterm election? Do I actually go to a community organization? Do I actually go participate in local government? Do I actually go participate in the school board, right? We're going to have to decide if we fucking do something, or if we're going to sit back and then turn on the cable news and bitch about that and then turn it off and turn on YouTube. Because what our politicians are hoping for is that we're going to keep turning on YouTube, because the more we turn on YouTube, the more we give them unilateral right to be an authoritarian leader, or even at best an oligarchical leader, where a handful of powerful people make all the decisions, right? But we are turning down the very powerful right that we have to vote and shape the future, like you were saying with many UK citizens who didn't vote. We're giving that power to somebody else. Right now, we can do that, and it doesn't really have that much of an effect. 30 years from now, it's going to have a big effect. And either you're going to be okay with somebody that you agree or disagree with calling all the shots, or you're going to get a little uncomfortable and you're going to find a way to make it work for you. The challenge is that in the same 30 years that we have to figure our shit out, countries like Russia and China, North Korea and Iran, who are already on that path and already good at authoritarianism, are going to skyrocket. They're going to learn how to run their authoritarian countries more efficiently. They're going to build larger militaries. They're going to make tighter economic inroads. They're going to make incredible efficiencies that give them a huge advantage. And we can only hope that on that path, they make mistakes as well. They don't have justifiable, or they don't have good internal processes for communicating honest feedback, right? They brief good news up. They're afraid of sharing bad news. Like, that's what we're going to hope for. But the truth is that if they get really efficient and really good at it, we're going to live in an authoritarian world. by the time we turn to dust and our children have grandchildren.